The Successful Servant Leader podcast is all about the pioneer woman on her unique journey of becoming and being who God has called her to be. The divine connection between the wealth mindset and success in every area of our lives can no longer be denied. Successful Servant Leader teaches us how to increase our confidence and strategically and effectively serve while in the pursuit of success in our lives, our faith, and our businesses. I'm your host, Victoria Grace, and welcome to the show. Hello, SSL fam. Welcome back to another episode of the Successful Servant Leader podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of this movement. I'm so glad that you are here. Go ahead, give yourself a pat on the back for intentionally choosing to be a part of this conversation that will surely help all of us level up spiritually, personally, and professionally. If you're new here, welcome. Go ahead and make sure that you hit that subscribe button on whatever app you're listening on. You will get a fresh episode on either the wealthy place, healthy behavior change, and current topics related to the modern day servant leader and the modern day pioneer every single week. Obviously, you guys, I have to say a happy new week and happy new month. This is the first episode of the month of September. I just pray that your last week was off the chain. I pray that you ended August on an amazing note. But if you did not, and your last week of August was not off the chain, if last week in general was not off the chain, if the last 2 weeks was just not off the chain, let's do what we can together to make sure that this week is. Today's BT is based off of a multitude of scriptures. It is based on Proverbs 3:5-6, Romans 12:2, and Psalm 27:8. I'll start with Proverbs 3:5-6. It says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take." Romans 12:2. "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." And Psalm 27:8. "My heart says of you, seek his face. Your face, Lord, I will seek." And I forgot one more. Jeremiah 29:11. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future." Okay, 4 scriptures, you guys. I don't know what I was thinking, but that's just what I got, okay? So the biblical truth this morning is, I fully submerge myself in this new week and this new month. I give myself fully to the Lord. Father, use me and continue to lead my way so that I can do the work you've called me to do. I fully submerge myself in this new week and this new month. I give myself fully to the Lord. Father, use me and continue to lead my way so that I can do the work you've called me to do. That was just so good and so powerful. Oh my goodness. Stand firmly on that, okay? Rewind this if you need to. Go back, write it down, put it on your wall so you can say it every day, every single Monday, okay? Fully submerge yourself in the new week. Give yourself fully to the Lord. Fully submerge yourself, okay? Fully submerge yourself. Stand firmly on that. Believe that you have the power and the authority through Christ to mentally and physically align yourself with God's truth regularly and consistently, and not just on occasion. You guys know that our biblical truths come straight from our amazing community, Sisters in Pursuit. That is just a clarion call to servant leaders and pioneers worldwide to emerge and be the pioneers that God has called all of us to be. So if you want more information and to join us for free, just click that link in the show notes. So you guys see our title today, but before I get to that, I just have to spill just a little bit of piping hot tea today, okay? First things first, if you are not in Sisters in Pursuit, I don't know what you're doing. go ahead and join the community. Not only do you get those daily biblical truths directly to your phone or to your inbox, whatever choice you make, but you also have an entire calendar. You have access to the entire Successful Servant Leader calendar. Okay. So with that being said, Wednesdays, it hasn't changed in almost 2 years. I got to do the math, but in almost 2 years, it has not changed. We still have our weekly power prayer call every single Wednesday, 6:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay. It is free. It is available to you. It is a resource. God has been saying for a while now that his people, his children, his daughters are not using his resources. This is why they cannot fully operate as the MVP. This is why they cannot fully operate in the power and the authority and the grace that I've given them. This is why they cannot fully operate and get rid of imposter syndrome and the spirit of paralysis and fear and people pleasing and all of these things. Take advantage of the resources. So that's the tea that I had to spill. Just number one. Number two, last but certainly not least, it is piping hot. And if you haven't been paying attention to the podcast, if you're not on the email list, you're not a part of my tribe, and you're not in Sisters in Pursuit, then you probably have no idea that this Saturday, September 10th, 2022, 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, I will be hosting an amazing event. It is called an MVP Day, and it is based 100% off of my signature Dare to Pursue process. You guys know Dare to Pursue, right? Where if you've been with me for a while, you already know it was a yearly boot camp. It was a challenge. It was all of the above. And I've shared on multiple occasions that God wants to do a thing with that process and that process alone. It is a 10-step process that now God has turned into an MVP Day, a process that is for specifically the most valuable player in their bloodline right now, the most valuable player on the team right now. Okay. And I know that that is you, because I know that it is me, and I know that it is everybody else that I am connected to. Okay. It's crazy how God just allows things to come full circle and then gives you the clarity, like, you're called to who you were, right? You're called to help those who were stuck and just fearful and imposter syndrome and plagued with people pleasing, and it just felt like they weren't worthy enough. They weren't good enough. And whatever the case may be, you're called to that person. And it just so happened that that same person who's plagued by those things, that same things that you used to be plagued with, are also the real MVP, just like you. You are the one that is called to be the change agent, to get rid of demonic cycles, demonic patterns, unhealthy behaviors, right? Unhealthy practices, unhealthy traditions, right? Unhealthy and demonic mindsets. You are the one that is called to get rid of those things, and then to also create generational wealth, not just financially, but spiritually as well as breaking those generational curses, of course. So this free event, I don't know how long it will be free. Okay. This free event will be taking place again this Saturday, September 10th, 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. We are almost at capacity at this point. So I hope that once you hear this, you are still able to register and get in. Registration does close this Wednesday, September 7th, okay, at 11:59 p.m. Whatever time zone you're in, it will close at 11:59 p.m. So make sure that you get that piping hot tea, okay? And it's free, okay? Okay. So let's get into it. 5 enemies of your purpose. You guys, today's episode is going to be really short. You're actually going to be getting this Wednesday morning. So again, make sure that you guys join Dare to Pursue, okay? MVP Day. I might leave the registration open until tomorrow, Thursday, September 8th, 11:59 p.m. since this episode is going out late. And I know that is my fault, but I'm going to tell y'all all about my weekend and everything in our next episode. But I got to get this out to you guys before all else. Okay. So 5 enemies of your purpose. And we're not really going to go in depth today, but I have to give it to you. And then we're going to go in depth in a later episode and this weekend at MVP Day. So keep that in mind. 5 enemies of your purpose. this was so good because, as I stated, God recently just completely revealed to me, your purpose is to help other MVPs. Now, I knew my purpose was to help people increase their faith, increase their mindset, and increase their income, period. Like, I already knew that. But like actual specifics, okay? MVPs, when he gave me that, I mean, it just took it to a whole different level for me, okay? And when your purpose is to fulfill the calling of being the real MVP, there is going to be so much opposition, and you're going to wonder, where is this coming from? And as I've stated before on this podcast, it is so important to be able to pinpoint where things are coming from, where they stem from, where is the root, right? So that's why we have to talk about these things in depth in another episode, okay? But I want to give you these 5 enemies of your purpose today. 5 enemies stopping you from operating in the power and the authority and the grace that God has granted you to really be the real MVP. Okay. And I have to tell these to you because I need you to do your homework now before I come out with the next episode. Like, I need you to start to pinpoint and say, oh, I'm struggling with that right now, or I've struggled with that in the past. And if you have struggled with it in the past, or if you're struggling with it right now, I need you to take it immediately to God. God, I know you've called me to be the real MVP. God, I know you've called me to break generational curses and build generational wealth spiritually and naturally. I know you've called me to be the change agent within my family. I know you've called me to not be afraid of change. I know you've called me out of stubbornness. I know you've called me, right? I need you to take it immediately to him so that he can begin to remove that from your heart, from your womb, right? We haven't talked about wombs in a very long time, but we've talked about in the past the nature of our wombs and how the incubation period, right, teaches us the nature of our womb, right? So anywho, 5 enemies of your purpose, 5 enemies stopping you from accepting and operating in generational blessings, stopping you from breaking generational curses and keeping you in demonic cycles. Number 1, people pleasing. You guys already know this had to be at the top of this list. People pleasing comes in so many different shapes, forms, sizes, sounds, okay? It comes in so many different ways that sometimes you think you don't people please. Can't nobody tell you what to do, da 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 da. But at the end of the day, you're a Christian baddie with a 6 or 7 figure corporate job. And because you're so worried about what your family may say or think, or how you may feel or your significant other may think, right? You're afraid to leave that job. You won't leave that job for fear of what others may think of you, for fear of what others may say, for fear of what you may think about you, right? Okay. And God is telling you it's time to leave. It's time to do this. It's time to do that. But you're comfortable in that space. I'm using that as a high level example. Okay. Because I know that I have some high level modern pioneer women listening to this podcast. And I need you to understand that it comes in so many different shapes and sizes. It's not just that person who has an abusive relationship, right, with their man, right? It's not just that person who is a people pleaser when it comes to their parents, right? And they just do anything. They're a yes woman, right? It's not just that person. It also applies to that high level woman who is afraid to step out of her comfort zone and leave somewhere where she knows money is good, where she knows the benefits are there, where she knows, because she's afraid of what she may think of herself, because of the standard that she's put on herself, and because of the cap that she's put on herself, right? That she believes whatever God is saying, it can't be good enough because this is already as best as it's going to get. So I wanted to give that example, but you guys know people pleasing. I'm a recovering people pleaser. Okay. And so because I am a recovering people pleaser, it is literally an everyday challenge to make sure that I am thinking for myself and God's way. Period. I'm thinking for myself and God's way. Okay. And I'm doing that because it is like an addiction to be a people pleaser. It is an addiction. That's why I say I'm recovering, because recovery never stops. If you know anything about addiction, recovering is a lifelong process after you've been addicted to that thing. And I've been addicted for so many years, not even realizing it, that it is what it is. So we'll go more in depth on people pleasing in a later episode, but let's move on to number 2. Negative self-talk. This is a really good one, you guys. Negative self-talk, because sometimes you don't even realize you are talking negative to yourself, or you are allowing other people to talk negatively about you or about your family or about your whatever the case may be. Okay. Negative self-talk hinders you on so many different levels. And when you allow somebody else to talk negatively about what you have going on, about you, about what God has called you to do, about your legacy, and you don't speak up. So this is also tied into people pleasing, and you don't speak up because of that person may be somebody high ranking in your family. You are coming into agreement with what that person is saying and doing. You're saying this is okay. So not only when you allow it to come out of your own mouth are you coming into agreement with it, but when you hear it come out of somebody else's mouth, because we can't control what other people say, right? We cannot control what other people say when we are not there. But if you allow people to talk negatively about you and whatever you have going on in front of you and you don't address it, you are coming into agreement with it. It has to be addressed, of course, in a loving way, right? In a way in which you can only try your best. I was literally just in this situation. You can only try your best to bring it to that person's attention with the best words possible. I would definitely recommend, Holy Spirit, please allow me to say everything that you would want me to say and how you would want me to say it. Please, Holy Spirit, help me with my delivery, right? And if you are a recovering people pleaser, like, you acknowledge it, right? Sometimes it takes time to actually acknowledge, but if you actually acknowledge it, that is like a double whammy. Because if you're a people pleaser, you don't want people to know that you're upset about a certain thing, or that a certain thing bothers you, or that a certain thing crosses your boundaries. You have to have boundaries. That takes us into number 3. You must have boundaries. So lack of boundaries is an enemy to your purpose. You must have boundaries for yourself and boundaries for those around you, whether it is those close family members who you love so much, or it is just those people at your job, right? You must have boundaries. Something specific I want to talk about in business is having boundaries in business and making sure that your clients don't control you. We were just talking about this on prophetic planning yesterday, and it is so true. Your clients, depending on who they are, they will most definitely try to control and overthrow you. And because I'm a recovering people pleaser, it was most definitely difficult for me to stand my ground and say, nope, this is what the contract says. This is when you can call, or I will call you. You cannot call me. And if they do call me out of business hours, outside of contractual hours, I'm just not going to answer. I have to be able to set those boundaries for myself. And so once I set that boundary for myself with some of my clients, they got the picture very, very quickly. Okay, I can't just call her. You can call and leave a voicemail and I'll get to it in the next business day. Yeah. You can text, I'll get to it in the next business day. You can send an email, which will be better. I might get back to the email even faster. But even then, I've had some people tell me, if you respond to those emails too quickly, they're going to think that that is what it is. And at the end of the day, boundaries are key. family members, friends, associates, clients. It doesn't matter. Boundaries are key, and you need to know what your boundaries are, because if you have no idea what your boundaries are until somebody says or does something that crosses a boundary, then you don't know how to react to it. Or maybe you react too harshly to it, or maybe you react in a way in which it is detrimental to you and not just everyone around you. Okay. You know, that 0 from 100 real quick type of thing. That is why it is so important to understand your boundaries and get to know your boundaries. This is something else that we will be talking about this Saturday at Dare to Pursue MVP Day. So number four, super exciting. Fear. Love it. Y'all already know fear. I'm going to talk about it, period, point blank. Fear had to be on this list. And when I say fear, I'm going to also include the spirit of paralysis, right? So that includes imposter syndrome, okay? That includes fear, of course, fear of change and fear of the unknown. This all goes together. And any other fear you could think of that I can't think of right now, and that maybe God has revealed to you, and you're like, that can't even be a real thing. Trust me, it's a real thing, okay? Fear. It had to be on this list because fear will most definitely stop you from operating as the real MVP. Fear will most definitely hinder you from walking boldly and confidently into your purpose. And mind you, as you can see, all of these come together. We had number 1, people pleasing. Number 2, negative self-talk. Number 3, lack of boundaries. Number 4, fear. If you are fearful, you're probably a people pleaser, and you're probably lacking boundaries. You probably talk negatively to yourself or allow others to talk negatively to you or about you, right? Okay, number 5. And then we have one more after number 5. Number 5 is overthinking. Now, you guys know that this starts with the mind work. You cannot just stop overthinking overnight. It just doesn't work that way. If you do not do the mind work, the foundational work that you need to do to make sure that your mind is set on biblical truths so that you understand that God's truth is your truth and nothing else matters, that's it. Nothing but the whole truth. You will continue to thrive in overthinking. You will continue to thrive in overthinking. You will continue to thrive in overthinking. And you know what? I'm going to add a bonus to this right now. So we're really going to end up with 7. The bonus is excuses. An abundance of excuses will also be an enemy of your purpose. So not just overthinking, but usually overthinking comes with excuses and procrastination, right? You overthink so you can't get something done. You overthink so I can't possibly do this because of this. You overthink so this could never work out for me. You overthink so I could never be the one that God is called to be the MVP. You overthink so you then in turn create excuses. And I've shared with you guys on this podcast in the past. Excuses are the tools of the weak and incompetent. And I'm not saying this to be mean. I'm saying it because it is something that I literally live by. And I had to catch myself. And it takes work. Okay. It takes work. Overthinking is directly tied to excuses, and excuses are directly tied to overthinking and procrastination and the spirit of paralysis. Because an excuse, what does that do? It just stops you from doing something. It gives you a reason to not do something, right? Or it gives you a reason to behave badly. Let's be honest, right? It gives you a reason to operate in demonic behavior patterns. It gives you a reason to operate in patterns of abuse, right? Cycles of chaos. So excuses are the tools of the weak and incompetent, used to build monuments of nothingness. Those who excel in excuses seldomly excel in anything else but excuses. Therefore, there are no excuses. Now, mind you, you have to be intentional to stop operating in excuses, to stop operating in the spirit of procrastination, to stop operating in that spirit of overthinking everything. You have to be intentional. And where does that start? It starts with the mind work. It starts with that daring to pursue you and daring to pursue God. So I just gave you guys 6, which included a bonus, and I'm going to give you one more. The last one that is an enemy to your purpose is allowing past failures to hinder future success. Now, if you know, then you're understanding exactly what I'm saying. All of these 7 things are directly tied to one another. If you are allowing past failures to hinder future success, you're being a people pleaser or a spirit pleaser, right? You're pleasing that spirit of fear. You're pleasing that spirit of negative self-talk. You're pleasing that spirit of overthinking. You're pleasing that spirit of excuses. You're pleasing, right? Right? So this goes back to that episode that I did, the event of failure. Failure is not an event. Failure is an event. It is not your identity. It does not define you. Because you failed in the past does not mean that you will not be prosperous in the future. And sometimes we put the word failure on things that weren't even failures. They were just lessons, right? In our eyes, it was a failure. In our eyes, it was a dub. In our eyes, it was an L, right? But in God's eyes, that L wasn't a loss. It was supposed to be a lesson. And so I'm gonna have to change the title of this episode, but that was 6 enemies of your purpose plus a bonus. And I pray that this spoke directly to you. I pray that you understand what may be hindering you from completely operating in the inheritance of generational blessings that you have, from completely operating in the power and the authority and the grace that God has given you to break generational curses and build generational wealth spiritually and naturally. I pray that this spoke directly to you. Let me go over them one more time. The enemies of your purpose are: number 1, people pleasing. Number 2, negative self-talk. Number 3, lack of boundaries. Number 4, fear or fear of the unknown or the spirit of paralysis. Number 5, overthinking. Number 6, that bonus one, excuses. And number 7, past failures hindering future successes, allowing those past failures to hinder future successes. This is all I have for you guys today here on the Successful Servant Leader podcast. Make sure that you check out those links in the show notes. If you can't make it to MVP Day, don't worry. We will have another one in the future. So be on the lookout for that. If you haven't joined the tribe yet, join the tribe. At least get on the email list so you know exactly what's going on. Okay. Also, reminder, don't forget about our weekly prayer call. You are getting this on Wednesday, so if you missed today's, make sure that you set yourself up to be here next Wednesday for our prayer call. Also, I think that's it. I'm just doing so many things. God is doing so many things. Let's take that back. God is doing so many things in this community, revamping my website, revamping the Successful Servant Leader website. Just all these things are going on. Okay. God is increasing and enlarging our territory. We literally have new listeners to this podcast every single week. Like, it's so amazing. So grateful. I'm so grateful that all of you are here. With that being said, if you haven't already, please go ahead and leave a review for the podcast. It really helps us to continue growing. If you love this podcast, please leave a review. And I will be back here Monday. Trust me, I will be back on Monday. No problems. I'm going to tell y'all exactly what happened over the weekend. Okay. It was a good time. I'm going to tell y'all. I promise. So I will be back next Monday for another episode of the Successful Servant Leader podcast.